Yeah, let's maybe transition to Kyrie. Let's talk about this. What is your take about this whole idea, if you want to set the table and give your thoughts on it?
Yeah, just to touch on what you said, I feel like it's like they're from the ownership GM perspective, I feel like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you do take all this BS because it's just an ongoing circus. You're constantly putting out fires, but if you don't and you start making moves, then hey, you're the staff, you're the ownership group that got rid of all these all-stars, and you're starting back from like a middle of the conference on down with whatever trades you pull out. So they're in a tough. They've been tight-roping it for a while. I shift a lot of this blame on the players. I think they came in with an agenda. They came in with an air of arrogance, not even confidence, arrogance in how they were going to assume their roster spots. It wasn't about being basketball players. It was about being GMs. It was about being owners. It was about being like, mega stars in the world. It was like they chose that situation to do exactly what they wanted to do, and they've done it. And this is the result of what they've decided to do. And Kyrie's stuff, I mean, we could go over the documentary. We could talk about, the ins and outs of what we've heard over the last week. I feel like this is all common knowledge at this point. Like, what was actually posted, what the reaction to it was, where he's currently at with his suspension. Like, we got the 5 games and we're kind of testing the waters, whether or not he, goes by this list of 5 things. I think Shams of NBA like put it out, like, here's the 5 things he has to do to get himself back on the court or whatever. But I just want to break down like Kyrie again. I feel like there's a lot of things that go through my mind when I think about the decision he made, but like, I think at the core of it, it's like, he just has a thirst for attention at his level that, only a handful of people, I feel like, kind of want. I feel like this is like a Donald Trump thing. This is a Kanye West thing. This is like, I need eyeballs on me for any reason, but for like very shockworthy, very, buzzworthy type events, type topics. And it's always kind of like steering negative. And I think he likes it. I think he likes that attention. I kind of like, just kind of equate it to like, he's a middle sibling. He's got, older sister, younger sister. He's got that, like that annoying, need to like irritate, to like push buttons, to push back against, I think he's got this like plot against the mass media. And a lot of what he puts out there is just like, I think he likes playing the mind games. He likes playing the word games. He likes to have people sit back with their whiteboards and try to figure out, okay, he said this and that links to this. And, here's why, we're wrong and he's right, or vice versa. It's like, I just think he likes to deceive. He likes to push buttons in a lot of ways. And a lot of this is anchored around the racial awakening, social justice movement in this country and where he stands with that. And I'm on board with him in that sense. I'm on board with what core issues he has a problem with in this country when it comes to, Black rights, the treatment of African Americans over time, the history of discrimination, all this stuff. It all makes sense, but it's the way he chooses to attack it. It's the way he chooses to footnote it, to cite it with, garbage like this documentary that he put out there. A documentary that basically debunks the Holocaust, that basically, pulls little pieces and parts of Adolf Hitler quotes and tries to spin it in a way that makes like the entire, white Jewish population feel like they've stolen, feel like they've, wronged, the Black race. I feel like it's just wrong in the sense that I feel like he knows what he's doing. And I don't think there's any confusion there truly, but I think it's always, addressed with confusion. He adds confusion to confusion. And I think that's the wrong part of it, because we have a generation that's growing up with all this technology, with all this access to information, with a lot of ability to be impressionable with these messages that are put out there from stars that you want to emulate, guys with lots of talent and are cool and are signed by Nike and, run with LeBron James and, all this other stuff. Like, he is a guy that people want to, emulate in a way. Kids want to emulate in a way. And I just think like what he does with his platform is just so irresponsible. And, I know it took a while for the NBA to respond, for the Nets to respond, but at least they did. I mean, at least they didn't, take a Houston Astros championship approach to it and do absolutely nothing with it. But the other thing I'll throw out there before I get off my soapbox is I think there's also a part of Kyrie that wants to get off this Nets team and wants to be traded. And I think he will do anything or, everything to make himself unattractive to either get released, get traded, have his freedom again, like whatever it is. But I think with the decision he made about this documentary, it's moving beyond basketball to his sponsorships and to other things that will make him money, where it's like, okay, now I'm going to have to retread a little bit. I'm going to have to apologize because I took this a little bit too far and I didn't probably think that it would get to this level. But I think there's an element to him where he's like, it's this fight or flight thing. I don't think he's a fighter. I think he's ready to flee, to find another situation that he can be a star in again and see if that works out there. But man, his time's running out quickly.
Yeah, no, I think those are good points. It would be funny though, yeah, if Kyrie, if I don't know, they were to trade like him for Russell Westbrook, right? I think I've seen that floated around. I don't know if that situation's any better, at least from the Nets standpoint. Maybe better for the Lakers and that whole fiasco. But yeah, I definitely feel like Kyrie and Kanye just ought to get like on a podcast together and just like talk things out, and we'll see what happens with that. But I feel like there's just a lot of yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is like narcissism or if it's just the idea to be different. All I know is that everybody kind of like wants to play sometimes the victim of their own story, right? Or be the protagonist. And sometimes I feel like I guess the free-spirited, free-minded type of people, right? Will approach any type of information that kind of catapults that perspective from them a little bit more so, right? We see that with Kanye, and then obviously now with Kyrie. It's like Kyrie's or Kanye is like what the richest black man in America or something like that, or one of the richest, and Kyrie is definitely successful in his own ways as well. So and I get now I'm looking like online and I'm like I'm seeing the worst of humanity. I feel like when these old things like we're all for Kanye and all that. He's speaking truths and all these things, especially with Kyrie. But then it's like, well, is this going to be breeding now more like anti-Semitic thoughts or actions out there, right? Like that's where I'm like afraid for maybe my Jewish friends. It's like, are we going to see more vitriol similar to kind of how we saw with Trump and everything? It's like, hey, you can be right about 10% of things, but then if you're going to act on those 10% of things that maybe you're right on or what have you, or at least what you view as right, then it's like, are you going to also like elicit violence? Are you going to say that my group is worse off than your group? Because I think that was my biggest thing, is like we oftentimes played this victim Olympics, if you will, right? Where it's like, oh, black people had slavery, but the Jewish people had the Holocaust or whatever, and then now we got to like, oh well, the white Jews overtook the black Jews and enslaved them and stuff like that. That's where this just becomes like, hey, we're in today's, today, right? Not 100 years ago, we're in today. The people that did all those things 100 plus years ago or whenever, they're not alive today. Well, what about today? What's happening right now? Are we always going to linger on the past and what the fathers of our fathers did to somebody else's fathers? Then it's like that becomes this whole essentially like gang culture, right? Where oh, you wronged me, or somebody from your past wronged me, therefore I must wrong you. I must shoot somebody from your clan, if you will. So that's where I feel like this is the most unproductive stuff that I feel like that can happen in today's society, as opposed to, hey, here are the things that might have happened in the past. How do we move forward? How do we change certain systems? How do we bring more inclusivity here? Like those are not the conversations that are being had. It's more like, oh, the past, it sucks, and everybody that has wronged me, they ought to like, what do you want to happen to them? You want pitchforks and fire and stuff like that, or what? Like, what's the end goal here? Because all I hear is like people with big platforms, like several millions of followers on social media, and what we've seen in the past is that when you have a strong following, we talk about influencers and influencer culture, right? Like, I've been, a victim, if you will, of, oh, I'll go see a nice restaurant on Instagram. Oh, I got to try that burger now or whatever. Now it's extrapolated from oh, I see a meme about, or I see Kyrie now, posting something that might be anti-Semitic, or push out some beliefs that maybe I hold inwards towards myself, and then project that onto somebody else, right? That's what we saw, kind of like as an example, from, there was that, I don't know, the TV show The Boys. I might have talked about that before, right? But kind of like superheroes, right? Some guy was like, low level in his career, I think just working like a basic, like, I don't know, like grocer job or whatever. Not there's anything against that, right? But it's like, kind of a low life, if you will, like live with his mom or something like that as well. So the worst, I guess, in the totem pole of dudes, So, and then he saw this, started watching like this misrepresentation of stuff, of like alternate media of, oh, so like I think it was like the superheroes, if you will, or like are taking over everything about us, kind of like an analogy of, hey, some other group, whether it be immigrants, whether it be, yeah, I think that's maybe what they're calling more so of, are trying to take away our everyday life, right? And they're attacking my group. That's where I feel like this is where things could be headed, if I guess people like Kyrie Irving and Kanye, they're not held accountable of, their influence. And I think they don't know their influence of what is the worst possible thing that can happen from you saying these words. It's that somebody can say like, oh, Kyrie, Kanye, who, we hold in esteem in our culture and all that, they're saying these things. I agree with it. And now I'm going to act on it by, doing something awful, right? So that's where I feel like it needs to be, he doesn't realize the power, like either him or Kanye realize the power that they have and influence that they have on people acting and doing things that are destructive towards your fellow man. And that's where I feel like, yeah, something needed to be said or addressed there from the organizational standpoint. And I honestly have no idea what's going to happen to Kyrie. Like, one of the most talented players I've ever seen, like, coolest dribbles in the world. But how do you come back from this? I feel like it's going to be fun and hard, I feel like. But yeah, a lot of things are going to have to take place.
Yeah. I mean, or they understand what their power is and they just don't care. I mean, they're careless in their approach. They're like, Kanye obviously has gone through a wave of mental health issues. He's got a recent divorce. I mean, his life could be in a pretty dark place right now. So like him airing out all this passion, all these problems that he has, or, kind of moving into, what could be an anti-Semitic type approach. I mean, that could be ultimately what he's trying to drive. He's trying to drive more hate. And I think the problem is like fighting hate with promoting hate is an option. It's an approach, but it's not a solution. And, it kind of reminds me, if you're at work or, in a group or whatever else, and everybody just talks about all the problems. They just talk about the problem with what you're putting out there, with what the organization's putting out there. But it's like, okay, well, what's the answer then? What's the actual solution? And people that are doing it the right way are putting together plans. They're trying to, like you're saying, build equity. They're trying to, think about reparations. They're trying to think about tax credits and other things that could truly uplift, truly help. And it seemingly started off well for Kyrie when the wake of George Floyd, the murder and everything else. It seemed like his messaging and his approach seemed very, humble. I've heard he's done a lot of great things in the community. People back that up in terms of what he actually does on a proactive side of things. But again, you can do all these good things. It just takes like that one careless, destructive type decision, like, posting a anti-Semitic, documentary without a lot of citations, to the world. And, look at how the world's reacted now. And it's just another thing, another drop in the bucket for this guy. I don't think he can be, I don't think he could be helped him. He's 30 years old. I mean, I think if this kid, was 22, if he was Ant Edwards making a homophobic slur, those are things that Ant's going to learn from and hopefully never ever does it again. But like, you're 30 years old, dude. Like, you've been through the ringer, how this world kind of operates, media, basketball, race. I mean, you've played on this before, but we're here still. If I was Joe Tsai or Sean Marks, I would do whatever I could to salvage any value for this guy, because the hope of him, like, not only just stopping all this, but like actually giving a crap about playing basketball. It's like, it's mind blowing because you watch them. I mean, the other night they came into a game without him and went on the road to Washington, and like Durant did like a really nice 1-2 step and shook Daniel Gafford to the floor. It's like, I'm sure he's just like, let's go play basketball, man. And it's like got to be refreshing a little bit to be on the court and not have to worry about all this other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely is like, I don't know I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I do wonder about, I guess, Kyrie's mental health, similar to Kanye in that sense. It's like, when you're always contemplating of all the issues of the world, right? When that's like 70% of your focus, that's like 70% of like what all you can talk about. Like that's just a slippery slope of destruction for yourself, right? So, that's where I see it's like something needs to, I guess, occur in that sense, or some sort of intervention to be like, hey man, like you have a platform, you can be positive about this. You can try to switch it up, talk about, anti-Semitism more rather than hey, I get if there is one good thing to kind of come out of this is like to learn more about, I guess, the kind of that there are like Black Jews out there and how that kind of whole progress. And because to be honest, and I definitely agree with Kyrie on this aspect of like a lot of these things just aren't taught within the American school system or any type of school system really. And that definitely, speaking as an Asian American, that I see that a lot in the Asian American community, where it's like, nobody really talks about any of the Asian American history or about, the Chinese and the railroads or anything like that, or, or exclusion acts. Like that's, nobody really discusses that, and I definitely, can side, I think, with Kyrie in that aspect, but then at the same time, like, the actions or words that you're talking about, it's heading down the way of eliciting violence, similar to, I think, with Trump and January 6th more so, right? And that's where and he's, I guess, to his credit, he's kind of, I don't want to say like completely apologize. I think a lot of people are like, is that all you got, right? I think Adam Silver was like, yeah, that wasn't good enough, let's talk about this more. So it was definitely like more of a deflection rather than like an apology. And that's the one thing about apologies, right? Is like when you ask for an apology and they say like sorry, whatever, it's like, are you really sorry? Like, are you just like saying it just to kind of get out of this whole thing? So which it definitely feels like it's a little bit more of that. And that's where it's like, you have a platform, let's try to build from it more so rather than kind of trying to divide people, or you don't even try to divide people, because like what you are kind of doing is dividing people. Like I'm reading the YouTube comments, I'm reading the Twitter comments as well. It's not looking good. Like there's a lot of people that are just like, oh yeah, like stick with it, Kyrie, like very much kind of like against the man, very anti-establishment, anything, right? And that's just where I feel like something could be like if I'm the FBI, I'm like, this thing's might be a little bit crazy now. Let's keep an eye on this. So that's where I'm like, Kyrie, I feel like you have the power to make some sort of change if you want. And great that you've been doing things in the community, but like like what's I think it was Warren Buffett said something along the lines of, it takes a lifetime to build up like a reputation or brand, but it takes like 1 second to ruin it, right? And I think we're kind of just witnessing that right now at this point. But I think Kyrie, he definitely is an eccentric person, but hopefully things, he can turn things more positive. I think with regards to creating more of a relationship and more of awareness on these issues, more so rather than like, hey, this person did this to us, like let's go get them type of thing. So
Yeah. And with your point, I mean, I feel like knowing some of this origin story would be helpful. It'd be great if he posted about a book that tells you more about, being of African descent and being Jewish, and like, what was that route like? If there are atrocities that happened along the way, why not point them out? But go to a credible source. It's almost like you almost felt like he maybe saw something in his own Twitter feed or something about this documentary and then read the, IMDb, 4-sentence summary and was like, ooh, that sounds like something relevant to, what's happening right now in the world. So I'm just going to post this without really doing my due diligence. And I'm going to stand behind it because, it seems like it's relevant to me. I feel like he just needs to like dig into stuff a little bit further. Like maybe he's just not doing his own homework. Like he's not actually watching the doc fully, or he's not reading the book fully. He's just reading the cliff notes. And it's like, yeah, man, that's like, it's pretty dangerous once you start, pulling excerpts and kind of posting this and, not thinking you're promoting it in the same process. So
Yeah.
that's more on a personal side for him. But like when we do talk basketball, get back to the NBA, get back to what is actually happening on a court, like I don't see him like being a real factor anymore. If he's on your team, he's not just not a factor, but he's actually something that can like pull your team down. And we're seeing it right now.
Yeah, I feel like he's almost like Kawhi, and I love Kawhi. I almost feel like it's like Kawhi just shuts his mouth and like he doesn't. I'm hurt, whatever. Like whereas Kyrie's like, Jews and stuff. So that's where I'm a little bit. In a way, they're kind of similar in that aspect. All the talent in the world, have championship pedigree. Have showed up in clutch moments. I think Kawhi is 2 as opposed to I guess Kyrie's 1, right? But yeah, it's like. They have all these other things. They're great players in and of themselves, but whether it's injury or, that mentality of like, oh, I'm interested in some other things at the moment, whether it's cultural issues, right? That's where it's like, what are you doing here? And, this almost goes to show like, I actually have a lot more appreciation, I feel like, for LeBron now in a way. Like, you see all this drama from all these other athletes, right? It's like, what's the worst thing LeBron's doing? Like, starting schools and stuff like that. And this is where it's like he's making the difference, right? Like, be the change you want to see in the world. That's literally what LeBron's doing there. So, I guess kudos to him. And yeah, like if Kyrie wants to maybe bring a more constructive voice to the situation, it's like, okay, yeah, take those points that I guess you got from this, was it Hebrews to like Negroes or whatever movie. Take the points that you I guess agree from there, and then obviously modify it. But then, hey, maybe work with LeBron, make your own movie that shows and documents this a little bit more thoroughly, without, quoting Adolf Hitler. So, stuff like that. I feel like, hey, this is, an opportunity for more constructive content. I feel like on their side a little bit more so. And I think that would be much better platform and format rather than, posting, was it like a trailer for this movie and all. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. We will see where this goes. I mean, it's going to be at least 5 more games, so we'll have to evaluate like the bare minimum of what happens to him. But I guess we'll see down the road like what's the major impact of some of this decision making.